Is 50,000 HBAR good enough for me? Now, I would personally say yes, even though that's not financial advice and I can't speak on anyone's behalf. But the way you take a look at it is that if, let's say, HBAR were to go to the price of $3 during this born, that 50,000 HBAR would hypothetically be worth $150,000. Now, some people may first of all be thinking, okay, that's not that much. That kind of sucks. But the way you take a look at it is that many people out there, at least that I know, they're not only just holding HBAR in many cases. They're not just, again, only believing in this, right? So if, let's say, HBAR is one of the components of their portfolio, or let's say one of the main components, let's say, hypothetically, in this make-believe scenario, I'm holding 50,000 HBAR along with a bunch of other projects. And let's say HBAR were to go to the price of $3 and then that holding becomes 150,000, it doesn't seem too bad in my opinion. Because again, some people may complain, oh, take a look at the prices of homes as of right now. But the way I view it is that, first of all, again, if let's say I was only holding HBAR, even that wouldn't be bad because under 50,000, that's a pretty good down payment for a home in my opinion. Not to mention as well, I know some people out there who have less than $50,000 and they went traveling around the world for years. Now, it wasn't like they were living in 5-star hotels or anything like that and eating out at fancy restaurants all day. That wasn't the case, but still they were able to go around, travel, gain new experiences, meet new people. So the way you take a look at it is that even still, despite all that, it doesn't seem too crazy, at least in my opinion. Now, let's not forget, when it comes to something like HBAR, people seem to think that, oh, it's going to perform badly and all this. Well, the way I view it is that Hedera Hashgraph is very wonderful in a sense that it doesn't utilize traditional blockchain technology. Instead, it uses something called a directed acyclic graph. Now, why is this amazing? It's because naturally, during a fully fledged bull run, people want to look for the next best and interesting thing. I get it, the price of HBAR, it's not doing the best as of right now. But I think if anything, by being a DAG, aka again, a directed acyclic graph, I think that right there has been proven to showcase that, hey, it at least works because not too long ago, we saw HBAR do very well. Now, of course, there's a big pullback, but I think if anything, during a fully fledged bull run, let's say Bitcoin goes beyond the price of $100,000, let's say 150,000, 200,000, and maybe even more, I think it showcases that, hey, at least HBAR has been known to, when there is a moment in time where Bitcoin does well, this typically would go along with the ride. So again, if Bitcoin reaches these next levels, the next leg up, so to speak, I don't see why HBAR won't go along with the ride. I think, again, a directed acyclic graph by nature has been proven to be something that people do gravitate towards. And why would it not? Compared to traditional blockchain technology, again, a DAG, it's typically faster, it's typically a lot more scalable, it typically has improved data storage. Keep in mind, Hedera Hashgraph is very scalable. Now, to note this, right, Hedera's native services can reliably scale up to 10,000 transactions per second and even beyond, at least it's been noted. Not to mention, we take a look at per transaction on average, Hedera consumes less energy than something like Solana, Ethereum, the BNB chain. I mean, it really is just very impressive. That's the way to take a look at it. Not to mention, Hedera has use cases in areas like AI, which I think, even though a lot of the hype did kind of, sort of disappear a little bit when it comes to the projects that are focused on that, the way to take a look at it is that better days are ahead. Because if we take a look at the AI market, that right there is predicted to reach nearly $2 trillion by 2030, according to Grandview Research. So that's a very massive market. And again, I think the hype is going to enter again. And when I take a look at something like Hedera, being able to play a large role in something like AI, why not? I could very well see it as becoming something that could do that because many of its competitors are using traditional blockchain technology. There's nothing wrong with that. But just by nature, because they are, again, using traditional blockchain technology, there are some limitations there that we just don't see with a directed acyclic graph. Now, some people may be thinking that, okay, the advantages that a DAG has over traditional blockchain technology isn't good enough to warrant mass scale adoption. And the way to take a look at it is that why would it not be enough? Because these enterprises and just individuals in general, they're usually looking for any possible way for them to gain the advantage, right? And it matters in the world of business, in my opinion. So why wouldn't they believe in something like Hedera? Not to mention Hedera's governing council includes the likes of Google. We take a look at LG. We take a look at Dell Technologies. I mean, it's very impressive. So when I take a look at Hedera, it's not a bad project by any means, at least in my opinion, and even $3 wouldn't seem that crazy if it were to go to that price. Considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $127 billion, which is a little bit hard to believe as of right now. That's around an 18x from here, by the way. But even despite that, I mean, Ethereum at one point reached around $550 billion in market cap, and this was back in 2021. Keep in mind, years ago, at a point in time where there was nowhere near as many crypto owners as we have today. During the peak of the 2021 bull run, there was roughly around 300 million crypto owners. Now, according to Crypto.com researchers, over 600 million. Again, that's more than ever before in history, allegedly. So, if Ethereum could do that years ago, I don't see why HBAR won't be able to reach around $127 billion market cap this time around. Keep in mind, BNB back in 2021 even reached well beyond $100 billion in market cap. So I don't think this is too crazy to ask for, at least in my opinion. Which is why when I take a look at something like HBAR, it really is a no-brainer pick for me. And all I got to do right now is stay patient. That's the only thing I can control. Dollar cost averaging. Believing in a solid project, in my opinion, in this case is HBAR. Which is why I'm just focused on that. Anytime an income I'm acquiring, I'm holding, I'm just waiting. That's it. There's really nothing too overly complicated when it comes to that. And again, it's just a waiting game as of right now. Of course, we can take a look back in history, and we do know that usually altcoins, as a worst case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. And based on the last Bitcoin halving event that happened in April of last year, 2024, of course, 18 months from then would actually mean around October this year. Of course, we can take a look at something like that and kind of hypothetically assume that, hey, maybe as a worst case, altcoins could peak near the end of this year, give or take. However, in my opinion, even though that could be a timeline, we don't exactly know until we do know, right? Of course, things can always happen earlier, which would be awesome, or a little bit later. But in my opinion, whatever the date is, I'm going to stay prepared, because the way you take a look at it is that I'm in this anyways. Anytime an income I'm acquiring, I'm holding, I'm just waiting. So if it happens earlier, that's awesome because I'm waiting anyways. But then if it happens a little bit later, so what? Because I'm holding anyways. I'm not going to sell. I have no need to sell. So I'm going to still believe in this. Some of my friends out there, instead of, paying their rent, paying their car payments, having to pay their grocery bills, instead of doing that, they're putting that into cryptocurrencies in hopes that in a week or two, this could go up. But then it doesn't always work that way. Now, sometimes people do catch it at the perfect time, and they could hypothetically do that. At least I've seen that. I can't say in everyone's behalf, but it's not always the case. But then personally for me, what I'm putting into cryptocurrencies anyways is what I would originally put into my savings account to begin with. So it's not affecting my life if my portfolio was down or whatever like that. It's not going to be something that's going to cause me to panic because, I don't need it to do well in the next 1 or 2 weeks for me to, live my life basically. I can just stay patient and just acquire, hold, and I just wait because I treat it as my savings account anyway. So it's not like something that I would need to use on a day-to-day basis, which is why the way to take a look at it is that it's more of a marathon for me. It's not a sprint. I'm going to stay patient. And again, $3 when it comes to HBAR wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And 50,000 HBAR, I don't see why that's a bad amount, at least personally for me. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. Greatly appreciated. It's Mali the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm a peace. Bye.